Hey there, folks. Welcome to our webinar this week. We're getting to be a little past 2, so I think we're going to get started here. Um, I don't have Tom with me this week, so we will not be covering a tax topic. Well, in a way, we will be covering a tax topic. It will be payroll taxes, but it will be mostly just a payroll topic this week, and it is going to be over state registration for payroll taxes. And we've had some changes lately that are related to this. And so this is just sort of one of the ways we're trying to get the word out, trying to pass on kind of how everything works, how it all functions properly, and what we're going to need from your guys' end, essentially. So yeah, without further ado, I will get started here. Um, so some of you may have received messages, emails, etc., asking you to register for your state websites. Um, I know that prior, we did these registration services with a fee, but we have been hitting a lot of state pushback lately. When I get on the phone with the state, they're essentially telling us, hey, we need a power of attorney. We're not going to talk to you guys until you have that power of attorney, and it makes the registration process kind of rocky. So we're not asking you to manage your taxes. This isn't, we're not trying to get you to log in to go pay it out or anything like that. We're just wanting you to build it so we don't have to essentially fight with the state over it any more than we have to. And the reason for that is once you do have your account set up, we can create an administrator account and hop in, no POA needed. So that's just kind of the baseline here. I know there's been a lot of emails and questions about this lately. You may have gotten some emails just asking about your state logins in general, and that is kind of what this is referring to. So, if you've received any correspondence over that, this is a topic that might be of interest to you. And I'm going to kind of detail why this would be helpful. So, what exactly is our goal with having you guys register? Like I said, I don't want you to be managing your payroll taxes. But once your account is set up, we can submit that admin account and then we won't have to be bugging you anymore. We're going to be able to log directly in. Really, ideally, the goal here is to streamline this process majorly. I don't want to be having to bug you guys for codes. I don't want to have to be calling you guys in the middle of like a meeting or a conference call or anything important and interrupt your day to just, take a look at your taxes essentially. And so what this will do is it'll allow us just, view access. We're going to be able to look in. We're going to be able to say, hey, does this corroborate with everything we have in the payroll system? Is this matching up? Is everything, zeroing out, etc. And that's really what this is sort of an attempt to just get some oversight over this. I know some folks are worried that when we're asking this kind of stuff, well, it's like, well, have you even been paying my taxes? um, what's going on here? If we have all the proper tax info, your UI rate, your UI number, your withholding number, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, payroll relief is paying the taxes. We're not just letting that slide and coming up to you 6 months later and being like, hey, what's going on? Do you guys have your login information? We have been, if you've been a client for a while and we're not just, bringing you on and immediately asking you this, we have this information. We're trying to just make sure it's all up to date and accurate, essentially. Things like UI rates, they change. So that kind of puts things at risk of like, if I can't log in and take a look, it makes it really hard to discern what the UI rate, should be, what we have actually paid, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll kind of show you later on in this presentation why it's a bit confusing on our reporting structure and why we need to be able to log into these websites. And I'll kind of detail that in the further part of the presentation. But like I said, once you're registered, we can set that admin account up. It makes things a lot faster. It basically turns into, instead of you getting the notice and sending it to us because there might be some sort of tax issue, and then we have to go through all this rigmarole to get logged into your account, we're just going to have a Volpe login. We're going to log in. It basically gives us an overview of all the accounts we're administrator for. Then we can click on your business and then just kind of go, okay, what's going on with the withholding taxes, for example. So, again, this is really just an attempt to get better oversight over everything. We really want to be minimizing any sort of tax issues, and this is one of the ways that we can possibly do it. What will you need to register? Unfortunately, it does kind of vary from state to state. You're usually going to need some sort of EIN, social security number, or something like that to register. They're going to want you registered with the DOR and the DOL first to make sure you got that business set up. it usually needs to be some sort of company officer registering. If you've got, just an office worker trying to do it, they might kind of run into the same issues that we do, where they're going, hey, I don't really know if you're authorized to be making these tax payments. Really, we've found that once you get on the phone with the state, which is usually needed in some part of this process, if they figure out that you're not an officer of the company, they're going to be like, I don't really know if you have authorization. They're going to want an officer on the line. They're going to want, some sort of power of attorney, some sort of document showing that you're authorized to do it. So I typically recommend just someone who's already authorized, throw them in there. They're going to be able to set the account up, and then if you want other people to oversight, you can. That's not going to be a problem. But it's usually pretty straightforward. It's usually just like a click-through menu of like, all right, you got your EIN? Do you have your, state withholding? All that kind of stuff. They're going to try to basically just grab info from you to make sure that they've got the right business set up in the system. But we will assist you with this process. Like the goal is not to just totally disengage from this. If you're needing help, if you have questions, I do want to be able to be there to receive those. So again, the big problem is just we are trying to avoid getting to that point where the state just won't talk to us, won't communicate with us, and then we're kind of like, for example, if I'm trying to pay off a tax that was, improper or something, and there's a balance. I just want to be able to pay it, make sure you guys are square, and not have to argue with the state for 5 days and leave you in the dark and make it a more stressful situation than necessary. So that's really just all we're trying to go for here. Just to kind of show you like the reporting structure on why this is needed. It can be kind of hard to see. I can zoom in here a bit, but see, let's say I've got, and just so everyone knows, this is a test client. It's not like a real client. This is our little test site that we can log in and type data into and mess with. So I will never be displaying data like that on these calls. So, but for example, I just put this in as a theory. Let's say I've got a 3% UI rate and it was effective 1/1/2021, which is just way outside of our, timeline here. In 2026, it's been about 5 years. This unemployment tax on our reporting structure is going to be based off of this rate. So if this rate is wrong, even if our tax shows, hey, you owed 3177 and you paid 3177, I'll need to be able to log into the state website if we don't have the correct rate to see what's owed. Did you overpay? That's sort of the thing. So to explain how it would look if there was an improper payment and it was reporting on our system, let's say some of the withholding got missed at some point during a payroll due to some sort of error or a check bouncing or something like that, and the system didn't realize it. System thinks, oh, we withheld that, we paid it. But somewhere in the transit, either due to the bounce or due to some sort of error, this payment didn't make it to the federal government. Payroll relief thinks it did, so it's going to report it on this report as paid. The reason I want to be able to log into your state website is because then I can go, okay, well, we got a notice. It says we didn't pay. Payroll relief says we did pay. The state is really ultimately the arbiter of that. So I want to be able to log into their side of things and see what they're saying, why, what's causing this to be owed. Is it a rate change? Is it, et cetera? So, or was payment missed? Was there an employee missed? Do they have a difference in reporting structure than you do? So just that's really like kind of the thing I'm trying to illustrate here is we are paying your taxes. As far as we can tell in payroll relief, they're good. But that's why we want those state websites is so I can really corroborate and say, yeah, I'm 100% certain that you have a zero balance. You're good to go. Everything is solid. So I am going to kind of just talk about the examples. Like I said, I know I kind of went over some of this already. That UI rate is going to affect that actual payment. Payroll relief assumes, rates, withholding, and other information from what it was originally provided. So, if I type in a UI rate, we never update it, it's going to just keep basing it off that UI rate. If you have employees turning W-4s and things change on their end and we do not edit their W-4s, it's going to keep withholding what we put in on the W-4. So payroll relief, can only take in what we input to it. It's not, communicating with the state websites, finding out what exactly is going on. it is a system that we have to input that information into, and then it will calculate taxes from there. And if there was an error, we would have to go to the state website, corroborate that, find it out. So if it believes something to be correct, it's going to put on that report that, hey, you owed X and you paid X. So it's solid, which is sort of the kind of issue we're trying to avoid here. Anybody who, hey, payroll relief says you're good and it turns out you're not, I don't want to be just trusting payroll relief on that. I really want to be able to trust the tax websites themselves. If you do have these websites already logged in and we're asking you to register and you're like, what are you guys talking about? Don't feel the need to re-register. You can just send us the websites. You can let us know, hey, I already signed up for all of this. I think I sent it over at X time. Here you go. And then we'll be able to just log in. We should be able to make an admin account from that point. So that's not a problem if you already have your logins. You shouldn't need to register again. There shouldn't need to be additional work done on your end. So just if you do, let us know and we'll work with you on that end as well. And like I said earlier, we will still assist. If you are having trouble locating a website, you're like, I don't even know where to go to register for my Texas UI, for example. We've done a lot of this before. We've worked with clients. For the folks we do have logins for, we go log in on these websites. So just reach out and just let us know, hey, I don't really know where to get started here. That all part of the process we can still assist you with. We're not going to just leave you hanging in the dark. I don't want this to be a situation where we just totally push all of this off to you. This is a thing that we're trying to do not just for our own convenience, but for your convenience, because there's nothing worse than having some sort of tax issue and they want it rectified immediately. And you get onto the state phone and they're telling you, hey, I'm sorry, you're going to need to do a power of attorney. It's going to have to get faxed over. We're going to have to process it. That's sort of the nightmare situation we're trying to avoid, where you're sitting there with a whole bunch of taxes you're trying to pay. The state's going to pay them now, and the state is also saying, but I need the power of attorney first, and it's going to take some time. So yeah, that's really the only part of it we're trying to avoid. We want to still be talking to you about this, or for example, if you're set up in payroll relief and you just, I don't know, I can't find my EIN, that's stuff we can assist you with. This is not, we're not intending to just completely hang you out to dry here. We just we want to make it a smoother process, just both for you, the state, us, so we're not hassling you, calling you on the phone, bringing you into a conference call, asking you, oh, can you come talk to this person for 20 minutes, give them the information, and then we can go back to what we were doing. That's sort of the process we're trying to avoid. So, yeah, like I said, this is not to totally distance ourselves from this entire process. It's not to say, hey, this is just totally on you now. It's really just to avoid those POAs and the additional state documentation that they're wanting, when we could just set up these admin accounts and then be able to manage your taxes with no hassle from the state, essentially. So that's pretty much the end of what I had. I will say, I know I mentioned this last week, there are some payroll policy changes coming up. This is wrapped into that. The next few webinar topics will probably mention, at least at the very end, payroll policy changes are coming up. They're going to be in place by the end of March. So by next quarter, we're essentially hoping that all these policies will be up in place. So we can kind of start fresh from a new quarter where we're not flopping anything on you midway through a quarter. So keep your eyes peeled for that. There should be an email coming soon. I will just reiterate, if you are getting these emails from us asking for registration, you're already registered, you're set up in payroll relief, and you're worried about us paying those taxes, because this is a common question. If you're not a payroll dork like I am, you're not going to be deep in these systems all the time, figuring all this out. It can be confusing, but we are paying the taxes. We're paying them based on the information we were given. This is all just to ensure that the information that we have is the most up-to-date information as humanly possible. So don't panic if you get one of these emails. Don't feel like, oh my gosh, I have a ton of taxes that haven't been paid. We are just trying to make sure the information is up to date. But I think that is where I will leave everyone with. I'm sorry that this one was a little bit shorter. I I don't want to eat up your time reiterating the same information. But next week, we'll have a little bit of a longer one again, I believe. And I will see you guys then. Thanks for watching.